Hi guys, it's Kelly here and I'm back with another video for Honeybee Stamps. Today I'm going to be using the Spring Blooms background. This is a collaboration between Honeybee and my friend Emily Midget, who is just endlessly talented. And as I told you before, I would encourage you to follow her because she is as talented with illustration as she is with design. So I'm just going to go ahead and put this in my Misty. I did originally try to ink it up like I do most of my backgrounds, where I laid it flat, put the ink on it, and then put the paper on top of the stamp. But my ink pad is pretty dry. I actually just ordered a new one, and so I was still making do with my old one and didn't have a re-inker for it. So I did have to stamp this a couple of times. That will come into play later on. So you'll see stamping it here. For some reason, apparently, I just did not get ink in like the top right hand corner at all. I could have swore I went over that, but I guess not very well. So I'm going to show you me inking it 2 times so you can see the full image, but I did end up stamping it 3 times. One of the things to keep in mind when you are stamping an image multiple times is you are putting down multiple layers of ink. So it does take more dry time, which I did not really take into account. I knew that on a logical level, like the more ink you put down, the longer it will take to dry. But because I was so excited to get to the coloring portion, I did not wait the proper amount of dry time. So here I didn't line my stamp up real great, so I had just a little bit at the top that the stamp didn't cover. I just trimmed that off. And then I'm going to pick a bunch of pastels. You can pick any color for this technique, any colors that you would like. I just kind of picked a rainbow of pastels, and you'll see when I start coloring here with my light blue, it's not really blue, it's more like gray because I'm smearing my ink. Why would my ink smear when I'm using alcohol markers with alcohol safe ink? Because it's still wet. So I just hit it with my heat tool. I really wasn't patient enough. I still had some areas that kind of smeared, but because I'm putting so much color on this, I wasn't really worried about it. But in case this happens to you and you don't understand what is happening, if you've stamped it, like I said, oh, don't mind my phone. If you've stamped it multiple times and you have not let it dry, then your ink is still wet. There's nothing wrong with your markers. There's nothing wrong with your ink. You just have to make sure that it's dry before you start coloring. So what am I doing? I am doing really random coloring, honestly. I am just putting down color wherever I would like to, wherever I think it would look good, because I do this a lot with watercolors, and it's called underpainting when you do it with paints, but you can also do it with Copic markers or any other alcohol markers, and I wanted to show you what that looks like because it is a lot of fun. It teaches you a lot of color theory, and it adds interest to your piece. So like I said, I picked a rainbow of colors, but you could do whatever you like. Now, I say I'm putting it down randomly, but I am paying a little bit of attention to where I'm putting certain colors. So like I already know my color palette heading into this. I know that I'm going to color some colors or some flowers purple, some flowers pink, some flowers blue. I already know that. The pink that I picked for the background is an RV02. And you can see as I'm putting down the VO1 that they're kind of blending into each other. And I didn't really love that. So once I get done with the purple, I'm actually going to switch it up and change to an R20, which is a much more, it's in the red family. So it's a much more like pinky pink versus a purple pink. And I'm going to put that in my pink areas instead, just so that I have that differentiation. But as far as picking where I'm putting my colors down, I know that with greens, okay, a yellow is going to be safe on a leaf, a blue is going to be safe on a leaf. Even some purples are going to be safe on a leaf depending upon what kind of green you're using. So that was really the only part that I kind of paid attention to. And then we're going to get into everything's covered. And it's actually kind of pretty like this, honestly, if you ask my personal opinion. But I'm going to get into the more in-depth coloring. I'm going to show you one of each individual flower because this is a very large background. I didn't feel the need to show you me color each peony or each tulip. So I chose one of like some of the ones that were a little bit bigger so that you could see more of the coloring, but then I'm going to color some of it off camera just for time's sake. And even though I did this video is still like 20 some minutes long. I apologize for my allergies. It is what it is, y'all. You know I can't control it. It just is. This is part of watching my channel that you must accept. That and the storytelling. So I'm doing the same thing that I always do with my coloring. I'm going in with my lightest color first, lightest to darkest, darkest back out to lightest. You will see as I'm putting down the color how it lays different over the yellow or it lays different over the blue. And this is the part that is going to give your flower a little bit more interest. And again, is going to teach you about color theory, is going to teach you about how they work together. A couple of things to note. The purple that I chose was a true violet. I did not pick a blue violet. Just like the yellow that I chose was a bright yellow versus like a mustard color. Because if I had chose to put down a blue violet as a base and then I decided to color that flower yellow and use like a darker mustard color, I will for sure get brown. Like that's going to happen because they're complementary colors on the color wheel. So any complementary colors that you mix typically give you brown. However, because I chose a true violet, which is a more pink purple, and a bright yellow, they will still work together well and not give me brown. And you'll be able to see that on this. It looks like an anemone that is on the well, if it wasn't upside down right now, it would be on the right hand side. So that color or that flower I am coloring purple, and you'll see that when we get there that there is some yellow in it, and it doesn't look off or brown or ugly. So that's really the only part of the color theory that going into it you have to pay attention to. But even if you didn't know that, you would learn it by doing this exercise. I think that a lot of times large backgrounds are harder for people to use. They're not really sure what to do with them. I know there's oftentimes I will pair them with larger sentids and a little less frill so that the coloring is, the background is really the star of the show, especially when you're a colorist. You want to show that off. Most of you are going to be horrified that later on we're going to cut this. We're going to cut right through it, y'all. But it's okay because it's going to give us 2 cards and both cards will showcase the background really well. So with that said, I'm going to let the coloring, I may make, notes as we go. But here I saw a meme on Facebook that like lists the seasons of, basically like Ohio, Michigan, Indiana, like those of us who are Northeast. And they listed this last week as a fool's spring, which is probably very accurate. So we had so much snow. February just dumped snow on us. Just snow. And it was cold. I mean, there were several days where it was, well below freezing. It was 0 degrees. It's been chilly. But then probably about a week or so ago, we got like a 40-some degree day. And then the next day it was like 55. Oh my glorious. Oh my Lord. It was so wonderful. Like I didn't have to put a coat on to go pick Peanut up from school. It was like sunshine. And I saw another, like little something, I don't know, it was on Instagram or Facebook, I'm not really sure, but that says, people, you don't think seasonal depression is a real thing until you, oh, wait, here. You saw me take the back cap off of my RV09. That's because I had just filled my markers and this one was overfilled, and so it was kind of leaking onto my paper, which is, I don't want that at all. But if you take the, back lid off, it like equalizes the ink inside so that it doesn't just leak out all over your project. So that's what I'm doing here. But anyway, I had seen where it said like, you don't think seasonal depression is a thing until you get that one sunny day and all of a sudden, it's like you've taken all the party drugs. Like, it was so wonderful to just like have sun and have it be warmer. It was great. So we have kind of fluctuated back. It's, it's March, it's Ohio, it is what it is. Um, some 30, 40-degree days, but every once in a while we'll get a 50, and it's amazing. So I cannot wait for spring. Oh my gosh, I cannot wait for spring. Spring is my favorite season. Even though I love summer and I love the hot weather, spring is my favorite season because of several reasons. Because it means winter is over. Okay? It means we're done with winter and it's only brighter days ahead. Longer days, sunnier days, warmer days. It's all like, oh, you're coming out of the bad times. Not that winter doesn't have its purpose. I'm not saying it doesn't. But I also love spring because it's when everything starts blooming. Like, the cherry blossom trees start blooming and they are beautiful, and it's my favorite season. It's when I feel like my mood is just the happiest without, for really no reason at all. I'm just in a good mood, and it's because it's spring. So that is my favorite season, and I am so looking forward to the true start of spring. But when all of the snow melted, now I told you it just dumped like feet of snow on us. Here's the problem with the snow melting on that one random 50-degree day. The water has to go somewhere, y'all. Like, it has to go somewhere. The ground cannot absorb it as fast as it is melting. And our yard is like slanted away from the house, which, like, yay, because it's important not to flood our basement. But that means in the back of the yard, we basically get a pond. So if there's a heavy rain, if you have like this mass melt of snow like we just had, it just all pools in the backyard. And that means that our dogs turn into mud monsters. Like, they're all the muddy paws, you guys. And because the water is so deep and Emma is just fearless, it means like full on muddy legs sometimes. Like, she's just been out there and she's swimming in it. And my dogs are not small dogs. My dogs are about 60 to 70 pounds. I think the last time we took them, they both weighed 66 pounds. And we don't have a downstairs shower. So, like, to even get them into the house and then get them into the shower, like, if that was a thing for us, we would have to carry them all the way upstairs into the tub, which is not a reasonable feat for myself. Like, we've talked about my lack of upper body strength. Whereas my mom, Beaumont, is my parents' dog. He's a little cockapoo who weighs maybe 15 pounds. So she just catches him at the back door, picks him up, puts him in the kitchen sink like she did with us when we were babies, and just washes his little feet and then carries on with her life. Well, I don't have that option. So we do the best we can with like towels and wet wipes, in the winter months. Obviously, once it gets a little bit warmer, it's a little bit easier to wash them because I can do it on the deck, if their paws need rinsing or if they need full-blown baths. Because, not that I have no issue with spending money on my dogs, like, none. But taking them to get a bath, because they're short-haired dogs, so it's not like they need to be combed out or they have an undercoat that they're losing, or, do you know what I mean? They're short-haired puppies. It's like $45 to give a large dog a bath. And I have two. So then once you add in like any nail trimming, which we do for Emma, we cannot do for Molly. She will have no part of it. But like, all of those little extra things, it's a hefty bill, a very hefty bill. So typically we try to do it ourselves. But then like during the winter, you run into the problem of, well, where do you put them to dry? Because even if you towel dry them and they shake everywhere, they will shake everywhere. They're still somewhat wet, and I cannot blow dry them. They will not sit still for that. Molly's afraid of anything that has loud noises. She's terrified of the vacuum cleaner. You'd think that was like the, Loch Ness monster. She runs away from the vacuum cleaner. So here's this flower that I was talking about with putting the purple on top of the yellow. Um, because it's, like I said, more of a pink purple versus a blue purple, and the yellow is a true yellow versus having any like more orange or something like that in it. You can see that they're working together fairly well, and it's not turning ugly. It's not turning into like a weird, ugly brown color. But I am going to color the center of this flower yellow. It's really the only center that you can see outside of one tulip, and I did add a little bit of yellow to that as well. But since I did the tulips in blue, that really wasn't an issue at all. Um, but yeah, so it's just been, that's the only downside of spring in our household is the pet mud monsters. The other thing that is a downside, it's not really, I mean, it is for me because I have to listen to him complain about it, but it's not, I don't do this job in our household, is the poop pickup. So after you have had, 3 feet of snow melt in your backyard, do you know what's also in there? You guessed it. Yeah, it's dog poop. So then, like, it's basically turned into soup. Eric does the best job that he can to try to pick it up. Um, but, you know, it is what it is. So then when you're out in the backyard, you're like, is it mud that they've stepped in? Is it? Is that what it is? So that's a fun game to play as well, a little guessing game there. For all of my leaves in this particular card, I just stuck with this yellow-green combination. You could certainly mix it up with like some teals, or like a true green versus a yellow green. But because there's so much going on in this background, and that is not a complaint on my part by any means. I think it's a beautiful background. But because there is so much happening, I just thought that it would be nice to let the leaves be all one color, and then so the flowers could shine. It wouldn't be a competition between all these different tones. Um, so I just stuck with this one color combination, and I was happy with the way that it looked ultimately at the end. I will tell you that the yellow green colors are very strong, and so a lot of those pastels that I put down in the background are almost non-existent in the leaves. If you wanted them to be more prominent, that's no problem whatsoever. You would just need to go back over them with whatever color you used as your under layer. So like I wanted there to be more purple in this leaf, like I would just cover over it or cover over a portion of it with some purple to kind of feather that in, if you wanted more. So here we are, we're basically almost completed. I did pick a darker yellow green. This is a YG99 because there's multiple layers here, multiple layers of flowers, multiple layers of leaves, and I wanted the darkest parts to be the darkest. So rather than just try to color them in all of that same color, I decided to color them darker so it would push them to the background and really just kind of play up that depth. I didn't shade them at all. I just filled them in block style with this darker green and was happy with the way it came out. Like every other card that I do, I love the detail work. You guys know that. So I am going to add some detail with my white gel pen to the stamen in the anemones, and then the one tulip that is like open, I'm going to add it to that as well. I also love a bold black outline. I know it sounds crazy. I know it sounds crazy. Reserve your judgment. But I like to outline my images, and I did this entire background. I outlined it with a alcohol safe marker, or I'm sorry, with an alcohol safe pen, because that just is what makes me happy. I like when the images are super bold, but you do you. That's totally unnecessary. Here is where I've decided I'm going to make 2 cards. I'm trying to figure out how exactly I want to cut it. I'm kind of like eyeballing, measuring, okay, 2 inches, is that going to be enough? And went ahead and cut it. So now I have 2 pieces that both still have a lot of color in them, and I'm going to do both of them in the rule of thirds, but in 2 different ways. So one is going to have more of the florals and less of the white, and one is going to have substantially more white and less of the florals. I like to frame my images in. This is just me. So I cut a very thin piece of black cardstock to frame them in. These are two other sets from Honeybee Stamps. One of them is He Has Risen, and the other one is Spring Joy, which was also drawn by Emily because she is amazing. So I just picked out some sentiments from there. And then they are a little bit on the larger side, especially for the one that I picked from the Spring Joy one. I needed a larger sentiment because I have a lot more white space. So I just glued down my flower base, and then I actually put the tip of the glue bottle right up against the cardstock, like the flower portion, so that it runs straight down and I don't have to worry about like the glue oozing out underneath the little black strip or trying to hold it in my hand and make sure that I get it on there straight. And that little trick works pretty well for me. Once these are done and glued down, I'm just going to put them back in my MISTI so that I can stamp my sentiments just in regular black ink. Nothing super different than what I would normally do if I had a white background. I put my magnets down on the bottom to kind of hold it in place. That wasn't really working for me because they're brand new stamps, so they're super sticky. So I had to just move one to the top corner, and then I'm just going to ink it up and stamp it down. I do believe I stamped these twice because, like I said in the beginning, my ink pad is dry, but I have solved that problem by purchasing a new one. Normally I would just re-ink them, but this particular lid has a crack in it. I don't know how that happened. I'm not really sure. Something fell on it. Maybe Peanut dropped it. I'm not sure. But so the lid wasn't great at sealing. Here I'm going to add, my typical clear glitter. I love all the glitters. The only thing I wish I would have done with this is I was rushing and I wish I would have taken the time to kind of outline each petal because you can see it when you look at it in the light. You can see that kind of like the glitter goes in a straight line. So those are just like little things. Nothing that's a huge deal or would probably honestly be noticed by anybody else, but I noticed it, and so I feel the need to comment on it. So once I put my glitter on all of my flowers, then I felt like my tops were a little bit bare, and I wanted to kind of bring a little bit more attention to the sentiments. So I decided to add some clear sequins. I don't even know if these are stylish anymore. Honestly, I don't even know if that's on trend, but I still like them, so I still use them because you know why? They're my cards. So I'm just going to put those down to kind of highlight the sentiments up top there. I'm just using the same glue that I always do, and then that's it. That's the whole card. So I hope it will encourage you guys to try to play around with some colors, not be afraid of bigger backgrounds, and just get in there and play and have a good time. So thank you guys so much for joining me, and I will catch you in the next video. Bye.